Hi, and welcome back to the English Grammar course. I am Marian, your English teacher, and I am back to lead you through this English learning journey. Today, we will be learning about comparatives and superlatives. First, let's review last lesson's content. An adjective is a word used to describe nouns, such as people, objects, events, substances, and ideas. There are many ways to make an adjective, like adding a prefix to an existing adjective or a suffix to a noun or a verb. For example, happy, unhappy, boss, bossy, love, lovely. Adjectives can be used between an article and a noun, the big tree. After a linking verb, the flower is beautiful. Or after a noun or indefinite pronoun. I haven't met anyone nice here. Cumulative adjectives are used without any commas and always in this order: by quantity, opinion, size or measurement, age, shape, color, proper adjectives like origin, nationality, or religion, material, purpose. For example, I like charming, tall French men. Or I have 6 tiny young mice. In contrast, coordinate adjectives are usually from a same category and can be used in any order with a comma between them. For example, that hard-working, talented writer is speaking tomorrow. Hardworking and talented, both adjectives indicate how the speaker views the writer. Now let's practice. Can you complete the sentences using the adjectives in the box above? We walked down the long, narrow path. Or, we walked down the narrow, long path. Both the adjectives long and narrow describe the size or measurement of the path. They are therefore used as coordinate adjectives. Two fluffy cats slept on my lap. These two adjectives are therefore from different categories and are therefore used as cumulative adjectives. There was a huge, terrifying black dog outside the house earlier. We are looking for a smart, experienced, independent teacher to take over the class. Notice the commas, as these are coordinate adjectives. We can therefore change their order. We can also say, we are looking for experienced, smart, independent teacher. Or we are looking for an independent, experienced, smart teacher. All combinations are correct. My mother brought several small blue plastic plates for the picnic. These are cumulative adjectives and therefore must be arranged in order. In this case, we have the quantity, the size, the color or appearance, and the material. Great work! Now time to move on to comparatives and superlatives. Adjectives are used when you want to compare things. Adjectives have 3 degrees: positive, comparative, and superlative. The positive form is what we have learned in the previous lesson. It simply describes one person or thing. She is smart. A comparative compares one person, animal, or object to another. We use it to compare 2 nouns only. She is smarter than her brother. We are comparing a girl and her brother, 2 people. The superlative compares 3 or more people, animals, or objects to one another. For example, she is the smartest in the family. We are comparing a girl with all her family, whether that may be 3, 4, 5, or more people. But she is the smartest. Now, how we form the comparatives and superlatives depend on the number of syllables in an adjective. Generally speaking, for adjectives with only 1 or 2 syllables, we add the suffix er and use the word than to form the comparative. To form the superlative, we add the suffix est. For example, sweet, sweeter, sweetest. Pink, pinker, pinkest. The cat is bigger than the dog. This is the comparative. We are comparing one cat with one dog. This cat is the biggest. This sentence uses a superlative. It is comparing a cat with other animals. Now, for adjectives with more than 2 syllables and certain ones with 2, we use the words more and than to create the comparative and the most to form the superlative. For example, beautiful has 3 syllables, beautiful. We form the comparative and superlative like this: more beautiful than, the most beautiful. Another example, pleasant, more pleasant than, the most pleasant. This sofa is more comfortable than the chair. My sister's sofa is the most comfortable one though. Now, for certain adjectives with only one or two syllables, there are some specific rules to remember. Let's take a look at this chart. For adjectives with one syllable ending in E, we form the comparative by adding the letter R and the superlative by adding the letters ST. For example, cute, safe, nice. Cuter, safer, nicer. Cutest, safest, nicest. With adjectives with two syllables ending in Y, we form the comparative by changing the Y to I and adding ER. And we form the superlative by changing the Y to I and adding EST. For example, happy, funny, silly. Happier, funnier, sillier. Happiest, funniest, silliest. And finally, if an adjective has one syllable and ends in one vowel and one consonant, we form the comparative by doubling the consonant and adding ER, and form the superlative by doubling the consonant and adding EST. For example, big and hot. In big, I is a vowel, G is a consonant. In hot, O is a vowel, T is a consonant. So we change them to bigger, hotter, biggest, hottest, with two G's and two T's. Finally, here are a few exceptions to these rules. Good, better, best. Bad, worse, worst. Many, more, most. Much, more, most. All right, it's time to practice. Can you form the comparative and superlative with these adjectives? This rose is redder than that one. The adjective red ends with a vowel, E, and a consonant, D, so we must double the last letter. We are comparing a rose with one other flower. Therefore, it's a comparative. In Canada, February is colder than March. Dom Perignon is the most expensive champagne brand in the world. We are comparing Dom Perignon to many other champagne brands. Therefore, we use the superlative. Expensive has three syllables. Expensive. Therefore, we form the superlative by adding the most. She looks happier than yesterday. The adjective happy ends with a Y. Therefore, we change the Y to I and add ER to form the comparative. Base jumping is the most dangerous sport in the world. I'm the best at cooking in my family. The adjective good is irregular, so to form the comparative, we use the best. Great job! Now it's important to avoid some very common mistakes when forming the comparative and the superlative. These mistakes are made by mixing up their forms. For example, instead of saying easier than, many English learners might say more easier than or more easy. Let's practice avoiding these mistakes. Can you guess the correct sentence? That dog is the happiest animal I've ever seen. That dog is the most happy animal I've ever seen. The first sentence is correct. The house is more nice with a fireplace. The house is nicer with a fireplace. The second sentence is correct. That is the most funniest story I've heard. That is the funniest story I've heard. The second sentence is correct. The new iPhone is bigger than the last version. The new iPhone is more bigger than the last version. The first sentence is correct. Great job! Now what happens when we want to compare two equal attributes? By attributes, I mean a word that describes a noun that says what it looks like. We use the pattern as plus adjective plus as. For example, Tom is as tall as his brother. This means that Tom and his brother are the same size. Their attribute tall is the same. Now, to compare two attributes that are not equal differently to using a comparative as we have seen so far, we can use not plus as plus adjective plus as, or less plus adjective plus than. For example, Mount Everest is taller than Mont Blanc. Mont Blanc is not as tall as Mount Everest. Mont Blanc is less tall than Mount Everest. All three sentences have the same meaning. That Mount Everest is tall. It's taller than Mont Blanc. Now, how do we compare two equal quantities? So we must use adjectives indicating quantity, which are money, much, few, and little. We use many and few for countable nouns, and much and little for uncountable nouns. We follow the pattern as plus adjective indicating quantity plus noun plus as. For example, they have as many books as I do. That means they, the other people, have the same number of books as the speaker. Notice the form as plus many, which is an adjective indicating quantity, books, which is a noun, plus as. Sarah drinks as much coffee as her sister does. Coffee is an uncountable noun, so we use the adjective indicating quantity, much. We have as little information as you do. Now, to compare two unequal quantities, we use the adjectives more, fewer, and less. Fewer is used with countable nouns, less with uncountable nouns, and more we use with both. We use the construction adjective indicating quantity plus noun plus than. For example, they have more children than their neighbors. That means that they, the people, have more children. More is an adjective indicating quantity. Children is a noun, and we use than. Elsa has fewer crayons than her best friend. The teacher has less patience with Jim than the other students. All right, practice time. Can you find and identify the comparisons in these sentences? Jane's not very tall, but she's as tall as her brother. As tall as is the comparative. This means that Jane and her brother are the same size. She loves going to school because her teacher is the smartest person she knows. The smartest is a superlative used to compare her teacher with all the other people the speaker knows. Jane reads as many books as her best friend Lola does. As many books as compares the quantity of books that Jane and Lola read. Jane has fewer pens than Lola, but Lola has less colored paper than Jane has. In this sentence, we have two comparatives: fewer pens than, less colored paper than. You can recognize the comparative by the word than. Great work! Another practice finished. Now let's try finding all the comparatives and superlatives in this text. This is part of an article from the New York Times. It compares different types of laptops or computers. Let's read. Many people already know whether they want a MacBook or a Windows laptop. If you're already familiar with Mac OS or Windows, the easiest choice is to buy a computer that runs that operating system. If you're not tied to a platform, the biggest factor is how easy it is to get support. If you're not a self-sufficient techie and want the best service for your computer, buy a Mac, because you can take it to any Apple store to get it fixed. Great Ultrabooks can cost more than many people want to spend on a laptop, even if such models provide a better experience and last longer than cheaper alternatives. All right, you have 3 minutes. Find the comparatives and superlatives. Okay, time's up. In this text, there are 3 comparatives. Great ultrabooks can cost more than many people want, and such models provide a better experience and last longer than cheaper alternatives. In the second sentence, we have 2 comparatives in one sentence: better experience than and last longer than. We also have 3 superlatives: the easiest choice, the biggest factor, and the best service. Great work! Now it's time for review. Adjectives are useful when you want to describe things or compare them. Adjectives have 3 degrees: positive, comparative, and superlative. The comparative compares one person, animal, or object to another. We use it to compare 2 nouns only. For example, bigger than, better than, more expensive than. The superlative compares 3 or more people, animal, or objects to one another. For example, the biggest, the best, the most expensive. How we form these comparatives and superlatives depends on the number of syllables in an adjective. Generally speaking, for adjectives with only 1 or 2 syllables, we add the suffix er and use the word than to form the comparative, and use the and the suffix est for the superlative. For adjectives with more than 2 syllables and certain ones with only 2, we use the words more and than to create the comparative and the most to form the superlative. To compare 2 nouns with similar attributes, we use the pattern as, adjective, as. To compare 2 equal quantities, we use the adjectives indicating quantity: many, much, few, little. We use many and few for countable nouns, and much and little with uncountable nouns. We follow the pattern as, adjective for quantity, noun, as. That's it for today. We've completed our section on adjectives and mastered the comparative and superlative forms. Next lesson, we will get started with adverbs. Until next time!